At a time when tensions between Washington and Beijing are already high over everything from the trade war to accusations of election meddling to North Korea, now you have this, a new confrontation on the South China Sea. On Sunday, the USS Decatur was conducting a freedom of navigation patrol near the disputed Spratly Islands, where China has built up an enormous amount of infrastructure to stake its claim over much of the South China Sea, a claim rejected by the U.S., which sails its ships very close to these islands through what China considers its territorial waters. In fact, the U.S. Navy released pictures of the confrontation showing a Chinese Luoyang-class destroyer conducting what the U.S. says was an unsafe and unprofessional maneuver, bringing the Chinese ship within 45 yards, the U.S. says, of the Decatur's bow, forcing the Americans to change course at the last minute to avoid a collision. And we are talking about that close of a distance between two warships. There is a very high chance of a collision, according to analysts who have spoken to CNN. But that one incident, that flashpoint on the South China Sea, is indicative of a much larger dispute between the two countries. The U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis was reportedly planning to visit Beijing later this month, but two officials tell CNN that that trip has been called off. China canceled a U.S. ship's port of call here in Hong Kong as retaliation for the U.S. sanctioning China over purchasing Russian military equipment. And then, of course, that doesn't even bring into account the biggest threat of all between the two countries, this escalating trade war with no end in sight, $200 billion in new tariffs slapped on Chinese goods by Washington just last week. So you have on multiple fronts these tensions between the U.S. and China, including this latest escalation that played out over the weekend on the South China Sea. Will Ripley, CNN, Hong Kong.